What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Gaming Without Parole. Sitting next to me this week
Yay!
is Dezrah.
And sitting across from me is Brian Paul. Yay.
We can sit like this, and then that'll be accurate. Ooh, I've never thrown a punch in my life. Don't hurt me,
I've
sir.
taken a few.
Oh, that's going to be a story for another time.
Probably not.
I'm going to invite you onto the Gamescast, and we can reveal all of Dezrah's most personal stories.
How many times did Dezrah get beat up in high school?
All.
Yeah, all. I have gotten locked inside a locker, though.
Yeah?
That was fun.
Is it dark in there?
No, well, you have just enough little slats to say, oh, there's other people laughing at me. Great.
I played Metal Gear Solid. I know how it works. Right. Our lockers were too small in college or high school to do that.
I'm not saying mine was big.
So if this is your first time seeing Gaming Without Parole, then congratulations on finding us. I don't know how you did it. But make sure you go to our YouTube channel, which you probably are already on. Just hit the subscribe button, youtube.com/withoutparolegames.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, this is going to be maybe under you.
Oh, it's under me now.
It's
Yay!
under you.
Hooray for me.
And if you like what you see, if you like all of the shows that we give you for free, which of course free is great.
Free is always good.
But if you like to pay for things,
If you do, yes.
how does that work? Nah, if you do like to pay for things, then make sure you throw us a few bucks on Patreon. We are a Patreon-supported show and channel. Patreon.com/withoutparolegames.
Absolutely. And as always, it's not like we want to become multimillionaires off of this, but so far right now, this guy over here is paying for all this out of his pocket, and we want to make that stop so we can continue putting out this content.
It's wicked expensive to run a YouTube channel.
Turns out.
Who would have thought?
I know.
Well, it's wicked expensive to run this YouTube channel.
No such thing as a free lunch.
That's okay. I like giving you everything that I'm giving you, so please, most importantly, just keep coming back week after week and watching us.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
I want to talk this week, Dezrah, about one of my favorite genres of video games.
Okay. Well, you got a lot of favorites.
I do. Well, as you mentioned in one of our last episodes, my favorite genre of video games? Video games.
It's video games, yeah.
Love that genre of game.
My favorite genre of video games is board games. Actually, no, that is a genre, isn't it?
More
Kinda.
of a... Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, never mind. Joke is dead.
Monopoly. No, we're going to talk this week about light gun shooters.
Zap.
That's right. There's been a lot of light guns. There's been a lot of light gun shooters. Would you like to take us off and maybe explain
Yeah, sure. So,
what we're talking about?
One of the first games I wanted to talk about was probably the first game that I would say most of us ever played, at least at home, with a light gun, and that's Duck Hunt. It wasn't the first light gun game, actually. Here's if you ever want to win a little trivia question with your geek friends. The first light gun game, any guesses? What's the first console to have a light gun?
I don't know, but I know it wasn't a Nintendo. They were definitely...
Was not Nintendo?
At least a couple before that, right?
Yes. The first one, at-home video game system that had a light gun was the Magnavox Odyssey.
That's amazing. Isn't the Odyssey the one with the screen overlays?
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
And actually had a very realistic-looking shotgun. Was for a game I'm going to have to... the name of the game was the creatively called Shooting Gallery.
Shotgun.
And here's the best part. When you fired, you actually had to rack the shotgun.
I love it already.
And it was... of course, the Odyssey being as successful as it was, all have yours at home still, I'm sure. Crickets? Okay. Yes.
I played one as a kid. I thought they were
Really?
Were they not that popular?
I've never seen one in the wild.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, one of my rich friends had one.
We were. Actually, that's probably a topic for another time. Let's talk about the Odyssey someday. Ooh. Okay. Duck Hunt. I mean, you've played it before. You hate the dog. I hate the dog. But if you haven't played it before, basically you start up the game. You've got the gun, 2 ducks flying around, and you got to shoot the ducks. You have 3 shots to try and shoot 2 ducks. If you fail, the dog comes up and laughs at you. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Which is always, I thought was interesting, someone laughing at you and you have a loaded gun.
Touche.
But
and of course, everybody on the face of the planet tried to shoot the dog at some point.
Yes. But here's the good news. There's an arcade version called Versus Duck Hunt where you actually could shoot the dog.
I didn't know that.
Yes, but your game ended immediately if you did. So.
Waste of a quarter.
But the real reason I wanted to bring up Duck Hunt was because it lets me talk about kind of what I think is one of the coolest things about these guns is how they work.
Oh.
So originally...
Still a mystery to me, by the way.
Oh, really?
Still mystified by the whole thing.
Okay. So the first light guns actually came out in the 1930s. Wow. If you if you've been to Disney World, there's actually one of these original kind of arcade setups, but occasionally you can find at amusement parks, you would have this gun that was connected to a wire, and you would point it to things, like little animals or whatever targets. You would fire, and they would fall down. And what it was, there was a light sensor on the target, and your gun was basically a souped-up flashlight. And you pull the trigger, it would shine a light, the thing would register and fall. And that's the way most people think light guns work. You think it's called a light gun, so you're aiming at the TV and it's shooting light out, right?
Well, infrared light now, right?
Well, infrared light now, but even back then, it didn't shoot out anything. Okay. In fact, the light gun is a light sensor.
Uh-huh.
The light is coming from the TV. If you look quickly, when you pull the trigger, you'll see a little flicker. That flicker is the entire screen turning black, except for the targets. So in the case of Duck Hunt, specifically, the outline of the duck would be in bright white while the rest of the screen was black. So the gun would be able to see where the duck was, and if you were pointing at the duck, it would register a hit. So there you go. Eventually got much more complicated than that. We won't get into like the super scope and that generation. Yes, and that generation of guns, they get crazy complicated, but in general,
and also not for the better complicated, because the Duck Hunt gun always worked. I had a Sega Genesis Manister.
Yeah.
And that thing never worked. It didn't even work with the 6-in-1 packing game that it came with.
Yeah.
Garbage.
There's some technical reasons why that's the case. But yeah, I always thought, it's not a light gun. It's actually, you're holding the sensor. That was cool. There was one other... Yeah. Oh, this is kind of neat. So Duck Hunt was programmed well in that, like, you had to be aimed at the screen. It had to be aimed at the target on the screen. But there was a lot of this class of games, and there were some Nintendo games where actually the sensing was kind of dumb. And if you wanted to win the game, you just put a light bulb next to you, you aim the gun at the light bulb, and pull the trigger. Because it was just looking for any light source at all. And if it saw one that was bright enough, you could win the game by pulling the gun at the trigger. So,
or you could do what I do.
What's that?
Just walk straight up to the screen, against the glass, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other little thing, and this was something, it was one of those, for me and my friends, this was like a mind-blowing Easter egg. We had no idea you could do this.
Player 2.
Player 2.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if it wasn't in the manual or we were kids and we never bothered reading it, but yeah, there was one version of the game, I think it was Mode A, where it never really said anything on the screen, but if Player 2 picked up a controller, they could control the duck.
Yeah.
When we discovered that was like, oh my god, did you know that? I just remember talking about it at school the next day. Dude, you can control the duck! So that was...
I think back in the Nintendo days, the 8-bit Nintendo days, you'd get a game, and you'd like tear open the cardboard as if it was like the Amazon cardboard shipping box, and you would just pull out the cartridge and like toss the manual along with everything else.
Manuals for losers, yeah.
Yeah, this is all you wanted. You got the game. Who cares about everything else? Us collectors are what kind of...
Right. Well, that's why those things are valuable now.
Yeah. Well, that's very true. Those cardboard boxes did not stand the test of time.
So that's basically, Duck Hunt. You know it, you love it. You can buy it for the Wii.
Yeah,
it's on the Virtual Console there, so you can still play that. Although if you get an old-fashioned Nintendo lying around somewhere, there's just nothing more satisfying than that nice little click on the zapper.
Yeah, and once they changed the colors from dark gray and gray to orange and gray to make it look less like a realistic gun.
Right.
I remember stories of kids getting shot by the police.
80s. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good times. But I think the orange and gray actually looks better anyway.
It does. No, it looks cooler. And of course, I mean, it wasn't the zapper, but there were those Entry-Tech, remember, squirt guns?
Oh yeah.
About the same time.
But
those
Super
were like
Soakers or no?
No, this was before Super Soakers.
The more realistic ones.
They had the electronic pump and bzz, 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 but they actually looked like an M16. Yeah. It was like scary realistic, yeah.
We eliminated a lot of children that generation.
Okay, well, anyways, enough of that.
Right. So I think every time we talk about a new game or a new series of games, we're gonna have to probably talk a little bit about the gun. We just talked about the zapper.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about, and this is a vast series of games. I kind of took liberties with my pick.
Okay.
So back in the PlayStation 2 era.
PlayStation 2.
There weren't... what else did we have? We had the Xbox during that time and the GameCube during that time. And neither the Xbox or the GameCube had a ton of light gun games.
No.
Or maybe any. I want to say House of the Dead 3 came to Xbox, the original Xbox.
Yeah.
And there was a third party.
For the GameCube.
Yeah, I don't think there are any. I think Nintendo kind of stayed away from that.
Yeah.
Because
they mastered it with Duck Hunt. Why keep going?
Exactly. But a great line of games came to the PlayStation 2 from Namco.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I brought props.
Ooh, props. Props for props.
Right? Props for props. Now, if you're a PC gamer, you probably miss big cardboard boxes. Because all the PlayStation 2 games and GameCube and Xbox, they all came in these plastic DVD cases, basically. Yes. And you've never seen something this big, right? So this is a game called Vampire Knight. Now, Vampire Knight is Namco's kind of take on House of the Dead. Right? And but Namco is way more famous for Time Crisis 1, 2, 3. There was Project Titan. There were so many different games. They also did Ninja Assault. So they all have these big boxes, which is cool. They're all hiding behind the green screen, which is awesome. And so the great thing about the boxes is not only do you have just a gigantic size.
What are you talking about? What green screen? This is your living room.
Totally living room.
Yes.
This is without Pro Game Studios. What do you mean? I don't live here. Nothing.
Right. Sorry.
Thanks for watching. Support us on Patreon. So the great thing is that this awesome artwork, and it's big and cardboard. Then you open it up, and there's even more artwork. It's like super detailed, kind of cool thing going on.
I miss album art. I know it's just not the same thing, but yeah.
You miss what?
Album art.
Oh, album art. Exactly.
Yes.
Right. You get the big LP, and then you get album art.
Get the picture and then the lyrics and all the thanks to, and now we get a little postage stamp size icon on your phone.
Yeah, I even miss CD artwork at this point.
Right.
But the reason we got the big boxes is because not only did it come with the game inside, but it also came with one of the greatest light guns of all time.
That's a piece of work there.
This is the GunCon 2. What are you looking at, punk? This, at the time, and probably still now, super, super accurate. This did not work the same way as Nintendo light gun did because, and I know this for a reason, when you point this at the screen, your reticle's there. And you move it around the screen, and it's following you very precisely.
So this is using the second one, which I wasn't going to get into, but yeah.
We don't have to.
It's nuts.
So you could buy the big box version of these and get a gun in each one, and then of course you need a second gun.
Of course,
because you can play 2-player in these games, or you can do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. You could also hook up a lot of these games. You were able to hook up 2 PlayStation 2s and 2 TVs if you wanted to have an arcade experience with 2 players.
Oh, okay.
You could actually see the other character running around.
Right.
It was amazing. My brother and I did it one time, and it was too much of a hassle to ever do again. But it was phenomenal. And actually, speaking of my brother, he's the reason I got into these so much. We had a blast playing Time Crisis 2, and then of course later Time Crisis 3 together on the biggest CRT television we could find. The downside of the GunCon 2, this is the reason in the other room I have a big CRT television. These don't work on HD TVs.
No, they don't.
So they are phenomenal, but you need an old school TV to work it.
Yep.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was saying, because at its heart, it's doing a slightly different version of the original Duck Hunt, but it is still taking information that's being blasted out from the TV. And LCD screens, HD TVs, the LCD, there is no on-off state. So like a CRT, without getting too much into it, there's all the little bits of color, and they're off until they get hit with an electron gun from behind them, then they shine bright. An LCD screen is always on. Even the black, that's why it's such a big deal about, wow, the blacks are really good on this, because the black is still light. Yeah.
I'm following. I'm with you.
So yeah, there's no on-off state like these guns need. They need a difference between there's something bright here, there's something not. So yeah.
What I didn't say about the GunCon 2, other than it being the perfect light gun, is that they're lightweight, but the size is perfect.
It feels, it's hefty, yeah.
But again, your arm doesn't get tired from holding it because it's so lightweight. Now, as great as Time Crisis 2 and 3 were, and what did I just show? Vampire Knight, and strangely Ninja Assault. You think Ninja Assault doesn't sound like a
ninjas
gun
and
game?
guns, right?
Well, yeah. The weird thing about Ninja Assault is that the assault is from a bunch of ninjas, and you just have to shoot the crap out of them with a gun.
Which is pretty much the answer to ninjas in the real world.
Yeah, is you do a lot of jumping around like crazy acrobatics and stuff. Like You Must Be a Ninja too. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot of shooting guns in that game. It's real weird. And there's two. I'm going totally off the rails because I'm just sticking with PlayStation 2 games at this point. There are actually a few notable exceptions to the Namco rule. Namco made all the good ones, but a few companies made games that were compatible with the GunCon 2 that were not Namco. This one is Empire Interactive. It is a game called Endgame. Now,
Ender's Game. Oh, that was the thing with Harrison Ford that came out last.
Oh, you're talking about Bender's Game, the Futurama episode.
Of course.
Of course. Support us on Patreon. Now,
please, oh God, please.
Now, Endgame, horrible reviews. Great graphics. It used the same engine, the Criterion engine. I forget what it was called, but it was based the Burnout engine. Remember the Burnout racing games? Yeah. So it looked really good. And a lot of destructible environments. And there's one scene in the kitchen where you can shoot up all the pots and pans and plates and stuff. And
hooray!
Really great stuff. It got a 3.5 on IGN. Since day one, I have thought that this game was underrated. And I stand by that. Especially for like the $3 that it probably costs these days. It's worth every dollar for each point that it got on IGN. So definitely check that out. And if you happen to live in the UK, or you're able to play PAL games or Japanese games even, there were 2 collections that came out. One is the Virtua Cop collection, which...
Virtua Cop.
Right?
Oh, that brings back memories.
Exactly. It was called Rebirth in Japan, and it was called Elite Edition in the UK. Both for the PlayStation 2, both with GunCon 2 support. Both these games didn't even come out on the Dreamcast. So PlayStation 2 owners really lucked out.
Yeah.
And finally, the Point Blank collection, which you'll know is a PlayStation 1 collection, or PlayStation 1 series of shooting games by Namco. Mm-hmm. Namco re-released them, again, only in Japan, for the GunCon 2 PlayStation 2 audience. Definitely pick that up. Point Blank games are phenomenal, and this is all of them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to go from that, like all these recommendations, things you can play at home, things you can pick up, things you can still get cheap. I mean, you can, if you don't have a CRT television, walk around your neighborhood. Someone has one on their front lawn right now with a sign that says free. I promise you.
There's one in my hallway.
Right. So I'm going to go to a game that, when I think of like my favorite video games of all time, games that I have loved playing more than anything else, this is actually on that list. Specifically for one summer that I spent playing this game nonstop. The problem is, this is a game, well, we'll get into it, that its best experience is only ever in the arcade. So, Brian has a huge history with light guns and consoles. I don't really. For me, light guns are always something you played in the arcades. Yeah. That was the best experience.
A great way to play them, too.
Oh, absolutely.
The biggest screen, the loudest
exactly,
noise.
Yeah. You're talking about, like, well, actually, we'll just get straight to it. Gunblade New York. Gunblade NY. This was a mounted gun, so it wasn't like a pistol or anything like that. You had actually the trigger back here, you held the gun here. One of my favorite parts about this is when you fired, there wasn't just a little, something like feeling of something rattling back and forth. The whole gun just like shook. Yeah. The idea was you were a mounted gunner on the side of a helicopter. As you're flying through the streets of New York, as it's being taken over by these evil robots, and that's pretty much as you need for a plot. The idea of this game is unlimited ammo, and that's it. Just fly around and blow up everything. There wasn't a lot of information on the history of the design of this game. What I did find, though, was the original manual that the arcade owner would get. How to repair it, all the missing parts and things like that. And in this very dry description of, if this happens, fix this, blah, 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 there was this quote. As far as describing how the game is played, there is nothing the player should not shoot. Every gun game should have that. There is nothing the player should... And that's exactly it. It's basically big-ass gun, unlimited ammo, shoot everything. I love it. The summer of this came, I used to work at a summer camp. I mentioned it before, and something really bad happened career-wise to me there. I don't need to go into the details, but my unit leader at the time, Faith, she actually, her and another friend, Mary, we all loved this game, and we would sneak off to play this game. And she, like, the day this thing happened, she was my boss. She knew what was happening. She basically, like, here's, like $10 worth of quarters, go have fun. And I spent an afternoon just blowing things up, working out some frustration.
That's phenomenal.
The only problem with this game, as soon as you said we want to talk about light gun games, I immediately went to Gunblade. This is the game I want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's not a light gun.
So technically inaccurate.
Yes, so there are light gun games, and there are positional games. So anytime you're at an arcade and things like Revolution X, the Aerosmith game, where the gun is mounted on a swivel, is not a light gun. It's basically an inverted joystick. And bending the gun around is the same as moving the joystick around.
So there's basically an invisible cursor on the screen.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but I'm going to still say, you know what? It is a gun game. I played in the arcade.
Yeah.
Talking about screens, it was a 50-inch projection TV, which back then, this was 1996. That was mind-blowing to have a TV that big. So,
so I got to say,
yeah,
having a history with consoles and light gun games, the second you mentioned this, I did a little research on my little iPhone.
Oh yeah, there's a PlayStation 2 version.
There's a Wii version.
A Wii version.
There may also be a PlayStation 2 version, but there's a Wii version that collects Gunblade NY and Gunblade LA.
Yes.
So if you do want to play these at home, there is a way.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. There's something about the tactile feel of they just nailed that. It's not so much as shaking you and painful, but enough so you feel like you pull out your triggers like, this is pretty damn manly situations. Boom, 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 boom,
I got you.
And you're not going to get that from the Wii. And honestly, as far as plot and graphics and all that goes,
yeah,
it's all right.
So it's the arcade experience that you're really trying to sell here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as far as that goes, I was on a site that was obsessive about arcade games. They actually found that 534 of these machines were released.
That's not many at all.
No. And there are, as far as their members had, 6 of their members had versions of it. 3 of them were the full cabinets. 3 of them were just circuit boards.
Wow.
They have a rating scale between 1 and 100 of how easy it is to find this game. This was rated a 3 out of 100.
Wow.
So I don't know how you can play this game. Honestly, if you know of an arcade near you where they have this, especially if you're like in the New England area, please let me know.
Yeah, comment below.
I would love to go find this and relive an afternoon. And if you're like super rich and want to make Dez's life, I've got room downstairs for an arcade cabinet.
Also, if you're super rich, support us on Patreon.
or give me a cabinet.
The theme of the show.
Actually, yeah, and we won't talk about this with my wife because she doesn't need to know I just asked for an arcade cabinet. But yeah.
All right. Well, so I brought up the Wii just recently.
You did?
Moments ago, even.
It seems like just seconds ago.
So here's the deal. Resident Evil 4.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when Shinji Mikami was like, if they ever bring Resident Evil 4 to any other console, if they ever port it to anything else, I'll cut my own head off with an axe or a chainsaw or something. He made some outlandish claim that he was going to hurt himself. Yeah, we could port it to everything, man.
Yeah.
Like, Resident Evil 4 has been ported to, the Wii is being ported to PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PS4, Xbox One. It is one of the most ported games of all time.
I was wondering, do you think it ended up on the N-Gage?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. However, I gotta say, I've played Resident Evil 4 many times over on many different consoles. And let me tell you something about that game.
Please do.
It hasn't aged well.
No.
And some people will say it has. But,
you are wrong.
But like the graphics still look nice and the story is okay for a Resident Evil game. But when somebody says this game hasn't aged well, what are they usually referring to?
I usually mean, clunky graphics or interface or...
Interface.
Interface,
Yeah, the controls suck.
Yeah.
Right? And the controls suck.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing. The Wii is one of the few versions of it where you can play with the Wii controller. You can walk around and you can shoot zombies like a light gun game. Okay?
Interesting.
Now, so I want to talk about the Wii version because it's one of the few that aged well. I'm pretty sure the PlayStation 3 has Move support, but I don't actually know that off the top of my head.
We don't talk about Move.
Oh, we're going to talk about Move. This conversation is not over. So, yeah, I mean, basically what I'm trying to say in this, it's a great game. And even if you can put up with the controls and everything on other systems, you should still play it. I mean, I just played it on PS4 recently, and I'm like, all right, it's not awesome, but yeah. But yeah, I think I'd choose the Wii version over everything else to play it on.
Interesting, okay.
And if you are looking for more Resident Evil games like gun shooters on the Wii, you get Umbrella Chronicles, you get the Dark Side Chronicles, and those are more first-person traditional light gun games. You can use the nunchuck to look around a little bit, and there's a lot of hidden stuff to find, unlockables. All of these games, I think, are absolutely essential on the Wii.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into much more detail because I feel like this game sort of speaks for itself. If you haven't played Resident Evil 4, then what the hell have you been doing? Even if you don't like Resident Evil games, you should probably play 4.
I've been enjoying not screaming at the controller.
Yeah, that has been nice, hasn't it? I have to do more of that.
So the last game I wanted to talk about, we're going back out to the arcades. We're going back to the arcades about 4 years after Gunblade, though.
Okay.
For Police 911.
You mentioned this, and I can't wait to hear a full explanation of why this game's so great.
Yeah, there's there's not too many of these. It was released in Japan. It was released in the U.S. What makes this different than every light gun game I've ever played or ever seen or heard of. So, in the Time Crisis arcade, you had like the cover foot pedal, right? You stepped on the pedal, you ducked for cover, and but you had the timer that would run down, so you couldn't stay under cover forever.
Right.
And other games have had some kind of either controller, control on the gun itself to control how your character moves, or you've been totally on the rails. Police 911, there is a gun, but there's also a motion capture, ring of motion capture cameras around you. So in effect, what you have is you're a police officer. It starts off you're doing a bust, some kind of raid at a nightclub. All the characters, all the bad guys escape, and you have to chase them down through different neighborhoods in Tokyo, and eventually you track them down to like Little Tokyo in Los Angeles. But as your character is going through with the gun, your motion is actually translated. So your real world physical motion is actually translated to the character. So you can peek around corners, you can duck, you can practically drop down on all fours, and your character will do that.
Wow.
But like Time Crisis, there's a timer, so you can only hide behind cover for so long. Here's the thing, though: they don't stop shooting just because you take for cover. Just like in the real, so you can take cover and peek your head out and get shot.
Yeah.
It's that one little touch of difference makes it so much more compelling because you're actually like, oh my god, and you're ducking for cover. Of course, you probably look like a maniac for people who are walking by, but it's a blast. The other thing, and this was a nice little touch I noticed. So if you shoot civilians or other police, you lose points. In this game, there's kind of a ranking system. The better you do, the higher of a rank you get. So you start as a beat cop, but eventually work your way to the detective and chief. So if you shoot, you lose some rank. But also in the Japanese version, at the end of each chapter, if you shoot a civilian, a newspaper will show up saying, "Officer shoots," and it actually has a name and like a history of the civilian. So you really are made to feel terribly bad about what you've done. The American version, the story flips. You actually start in Little Tokyo and chase people to the real Tokyo.
Okay.
And then if you kill a civilian, it actually just says, you lose your rank, and it says, try not to do that again, basically. But yeah, there was this, and then there was the same company. Was it Sega? I didn't write that down. I think it was Sega. I'm gonna say Sega. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. So this came out in 2000. A sequel of sorts came out called Mocap Boxing. So it's I'm not gonna. We can't call it a light gun, but I want to mention these two. Same motion capture idea, but you had two like fists, and you could it was a boxing thing, punch out, but now you're actually like dodging. So you can dodge a punch and. Wow. Yeah,
that looks like it hurt.
Really hurt. So, yeah, this is another one. If you can find a place to play this, is absolutely worth checking out. I don't think there are any other games like this. But the police... There was a sequel to Police 911 that came out in Japan and the UK. I don't think it made it to the States. Or Japan and Europe. I don't think it made it to the States. And as far as I know, there are no sequel to Mocap Boxing. But
it sounds like the most expensive arcade cabinets ever made.
It probably was, and I'm sure that's the one I played was actually at Walt Disney World, and I was there for a convention. I was actually there for work.
No.
So anytime I wasn't like in, if you've done conventions, like convention at Disney World, that sounds great. It's still just a convention. You're still just doing workshops. So every time I wasn't in the workshop, I was at this 911 simulator.
Yeah.
So check that out. And arcade people, make more of these games.
Arcade people?
Yeah, I know are there any arcades left?
Arcade people?
Is there an arcade?
Should we be concerned? Are the arcade people taking over?
I wish they would.
Who are the arcade people?
Actually, there's a chain out in Southern California called Nickel Nickel. It's a brilliant idea. I wish they'd bring it. So it's basically all old arcades, and we're kind of going along here. But you pay $5, $10. I forget what the entry fee is. But then you go in, and then every arcade cabinet you've ever played in your life, instead of a quarter, it's a nickel.
Sweet.
Yeah. So you just bring in this huge pile of change and play for hours. It's a great idea.
That's awesome.
Bring back more of those.
Nice.
But anyways.
So the last game I want to talk about, and I wanted to kind of bring this through the timeline of my favorite light gun shooters, and of course, light gun. We're using this term very loosely today.
Well, see, Police 911 is a traditional light gun, though.
Oh, good.
Yes, it's just also a light U as well.
Yeah. So we briefly mentioned the devil, PlayStation Move. Now the PlayStation Move, right? This thing. Kind of a big pile of crap. When it was launched for the PlayStation 3, it was supposed to be the answer to the Nintendo Wii. Yes.
Does it look like anything other than a sex toy?
Huh? You should.
I know. So Nintendo had some branding issues and name issues at the time, but I don't. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, moving on.
I'll tell you, it feels comfortable.
It certainly does.
Right. So this was their answer to the Nintendo Wii. Probably 2 years too late.
Yeah. And
the tech, it was a little janky. They used this crappy camera on top of your TV, and it was just, it really wasn't the way to go. Mm-hmm. I was excited for the PlayStation Move. I was like, I don't have to. I actually sold my Wii and all my games because I was like, they're all going to come to PlayStation 3. Some of them did. Most of them didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a thing. Not a good thing. So you understandably be a little shocked and not so surprised to hear that I was a little upset when Sony said, "Hey, we're going to bring you cutting-edge technology for your PlayStation 4 in the form of PlayStation Virtual Reality."
Yes.
And if you want to move things with your hand move, you're going to have to move them with Move controllers. Are you effing kidding me, Sony?
I just spent how much on this thing, and I have to go back and using this.
Right, it's a $400 piece of technology on your face.
Yeah.
And you got to use a little $35 piece of crap from 7 years ago.
Which we already know is a piece of crap.
Yes.
Did you offer, at least when Nintendo did the Wii, they said, you know what, this isn't so great, and they came out with
Wii Motion Plus.
Wii Motion Plus,
and it definitely improved things.
Absolutely. Has Sony? Where's the Move Plus?
Let me tell you something. This crap's been sitting on my bookshelf for years.
Yes. I
don't know why I didn't sell it. Right, and I've had a couple of them just sitting around.
You're working on a juggling act.
I should have. They would have at least come in handy because I certainly wasn't playing any Move games. So I pulled them out of retirement when my PlayStation VR showed up. And especially for the game I want to talk about, which is Until Dawn.
Oh.
Rush of Blood.
Is there hope for the Move?
So, here's the thing.
That means no.
And Until Dawn Rush of Blood, you sit in the front seat of a roller coaster cart.
As you do.
As you do. So you're kind of stuck.
Okay.
Yep. And you don't control the speed of the roller coaster because that's not your job as the rider. But it takes you all the way through a fun house, and it takes 8 levels, 10 levels, something like that.
It's a long roller coaster.
Yep. And sometimes you're going through rooms real slow, and they're not the kind of rooms you want to go slow through. They're like, can we speed up, please? Something is coming after me. Can we speed up? And sometimes it's an actual roller coaster where you're going up a hill and boom, you go down. And I'll tell you, in VR, very convincing. your stomach will drop. And you're like, oh, and like you'll even make the motions. You'll be like, oh, it's real weird, real convincing. I love it.
And real nauseating, or
no?
Okay.
No, I've said before on this podcast and other reviews and shows, whatever, that any game that has you sitting down as your position in the game, it always works well. If you're driving a car, if you're in the cockpit of a jet fighter,
right?
All these things work because you're already sitting on your couch, so it's believable. It's when you're walking around freely that your stomach starts to get sick. So everything about this game is everything I want it to be. Mm-hmm. It's basically the best combination of my favorite things. It's like a haunted house.
Yep.
With VR, in a scary movie, and a roller coaster.
Wins all around.
I love everything about this.
So what kind of turd can we chain to it to make it awful?
So let's add some move controllers to it. It's because you have guns, one in each hand. Now, I know I've been building this up to let you down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Oh. What's this?
This is amazing that the move controllers work really well.
Wow.
Yeah, in 3D space, they're awesome. You can see your arms, and you're waving your guns around, and you're shooting stuff, and your guns double as flashlights. So there's no crosshair.
Yeah,
it's just whatever your flashlight is focused on. That's what you're. Yeah, it's not perfect, but they're very accurate.
Are they laggy at all? Because I remember that like you move and it takes some time to follow up, or is it right on?
Somehow Sony has brought the response time, the lag time down to unnoticeable numbers.
That's awesome, because that was always the pain with all of these. It was just like there was always a little fraction of a.
It was like dragging behind a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. No, this is unbelievable. I can't believe that this crap that's been sitting on my wall for 7 years, I think, is finally useful, and in a very good way.
So props to the coders. Nicely done, guys.
Yeah.
Or gals. People.
Everybody.
Probably guys.
Dogs, cats, whoever worked on this, y'all did great. And I gotta say, you can use the DualShock 4 if you just want a regular controller. Mm-hmm. Don't do it. This game alone is worth rebuying move controllers for.
Now, do you need to, or is it recommended to?
I want to say that you either use one DualShock controller or two move controllers. Okay. I think that's it. And I think in any game that allows you to use move controllers, I think all of them at this point require you to use two.
Okay.
Because it makes so much sense. You have two hands. You need two controllers. It's a little strange because if you ever played the original Until Dawn, it's a very Quantic Dream-like game. You walk around and you have to make decisions, and sometimes your decisions cause people to get killed. It's basically a scary movie choose-your-own-adventure game.
Right.
This is obviously kind of
rails.
like, it's very much so, an actual on-rails shooter. This is like a departure like Dead Space Extraction was from the original Dead Space games.
Okay.
This is very strange. It doesn't even feel like it belongs in the series, but it's made by Supermassive Games, the same people that made the original Until Dawn. And I gotta say, people thought this might be a cash-in.
Yeah.
The game was only $20, and I would have paid twice as much. This absolutely worth it. If you have PlayStation VR and you like even remotely scary things, this game's for you.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, in our real life, like, I remember when he first played this game, he came to work, oh my god, I had this amazing experience. This is the one of the spiders.
Oh, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and he's just like, this is the first time I've actually, you see all the people, like, ripping off the VR helmets and freaking out and like, oh, that can't really happen. He comes in talking about, there's a scene apparently, like, there's these spiders that are coming into your thing, and you shoot them, and then more smaller spiders come, and they keep flooding you, and eventually, like, he was so freaked out, he had to actually rip off the VR thing and say, okay, I'm done with this.
They crawl over the roller coaster ride, and so suddenly they're like, they're right there in front of you, and you're like, shoot, yeah. and then at the end of that level, and this is kind of spoilery, but I mean, every time I've played it, I've had the same reaction. They crawl up on you because you can't shoot them all off, and the first time I did it, I closed my eyes because I was like, I can't handle this, and then I felt them on me because my brain was convinced, and I was like, that's it, I took it off. I couldn't do it. So $20 well spent.
Yeah, and honestly, that story is what sold me on, like, okay, maybe there's something to this new generation of VR games, because I'm old enough to have been one of the people burned from the first generation, and seeing and hearing like this, he's not putting this on for camera.
No.
I mean, he was even more animated when he was just telling us about it in our real boring lives. So definitely, if you have the opportunity, absolutely get this game.
You definitely, you brought up how great these light gun games are in arcades.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the good thing about VR, I mean, the only one I've used is PSVR, but I mean, they're all out there. It kind of gives you that feeling of being at the arcade.
Right.
You're kind of convinced that you're in this roller coaster ride, and the whole time I'm sort of like thinking, it feels like the roller coaster ride is that arcade cabinet, and you're really immersed in it.
Well, and that's immersion. I was going to say, going back to our spooky games episode,
good one.
Immersion is absolutely the key to this kind of game, and VR, when it's done well, is a nice shortcut right to that. I mean, you're dropped right into that world in a very literal sense, and so it sounds.
Lesson learned: don't throw away your Move controllers quite yet. There is still good use for them.
And if you don't buy the VR, then I'll teach you how to juggle.
I like this. Yeah, it's a good trade-off. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week because we don't really plan this out too far ahead. But what we want to say is that we want you to be part of the show. We really like your feedback. We like when you comment. We'd like you to tell us maybe what our next topic should be.
Yes.
So definitely leave a comment below. Tell us what your favorite light gun games are. Tell us what games you want us to talk about. Make sure you subscribe. Support us on Patreon.
Yes, and tell a friend.
Yeah, that's way better. We'd way rather have you tell a friend about us than for us to take your money. Trust us. Subscribers mean everything to me. Every day I wake up and I see new subscribers. I'm like, holy moly, people are watching us. I get so excited about it. If you leave a comment, I always respond because that's where we are right now. We're in a position where we can do that. And every single comment, the fact that, I watch a lot of YouTube and I don't comment, really. I don't even click like. Yeah. So I know that like when somebody clicks like or leaves a comment, they're going out of their way.
Yeah, we absolutely appreciate it. I mean, it still blows my mind that the people are actually watching this thing anyways. So thank you so much for doing that. And we will I will be better at responding to comments. We're kind of working on that.
Des is way busier than I am. Yeah. I'm busy working on the channel, and that's why I get to see all the comments. But Des has, multiple lives outside of this one.
6 jobs. Yeah. 5? Too many.
17. My favorite number.
Hey.
Thank you for watching Gaming Without Parole. So for Gaming Without Parole, this week, I'm Brian Fall.
And I'm Dezrah.
And we'll see you next week.